ZK Jam, everyone. This was supposed to be a panel with the Polygon team as well, but I think we changed it to a fireside chat last minute, which is a shame, because now we don't really have anyone representing the EVM. I'm Karel from Union. We do zero-knowledge-based interoperability, so we're really focused on the ZK portion in between chains. I don't know that much about Aleph Zero, so maybe you can give me a bit of an idea about it.
Happy to. I was just reading your docs while sitting with Nick before the chat. But hi everyone. So what we do, we started as an L1 back in 2018. Then we also deployed, and this was based on our own consensus protocol and the substrate stack. Then we've also expanded to essentially an L2 EVM with ZK precompiles. So what we do is the client side of ZK, which then we use to achieve on-chain privacy very, very fast. So think of it as essentially an equivalent of end-to-end encryption, I guess.
Okay, that's cool. So basically, the on-chain portion, you don't do a ZKP of your L1 transition function, but every single user generates ZKPs
Correct.
for themselves.
On their devices, whether it's desktop or mobile, and we just recently got it down to as fast as 0.3, 0.4 seconds, which is quite cool, because I don't think it was done before.
Yeah, that's something we're looking into now as well, to do more client-side proving. So in Union's model, IBC relayers generate ZKPs to facilitate bridge transfers. But technically in this model, you don't need to have a server generate a ZKP. Theoretically, you could do it in the browser. As of now, we can do it, but the latency increases too much. I think the proving time would be about a minute if we were to do it in the browser, maybe a bit more. For those that participated in our trusted setup ceremony so far, you've also noticed you had to download a separate program because we just couldn't get the WebAssembly portion to actually be fast enough. How did you guys handle that?
Well, I think right now, over 8 months of optimizing Halo 2. We're pre-ceremony, so we're gonna have that soon. This is right now on testnet. You can generally play around with it if you go to common.fi/shield. So this is the first implementation. The overall goal that we have with this tag is to create somewhat of an omni-chain privacy pool. Because right now what we have are solutions that are specifically deployed on each given chain, and that decreases the size of the privacy pool and makes essentially everything more fragmented. So we rely on certain bridging infrastructure that I'm not gonna name out of respect, but I think we should also talk to achieve this. And IBC is a part of it. So are all the, let's say, Ethereum rollups. So it should be quite cool.
Okay, so I heard privacy here. How do you guys handle that from a regulatory perspective? I'm Dutch myself, so it's my fear to get arrested in Amsterdam.
Sure. We start with anonymity revokers. Essentially, it's not an ideal solution from the sort of the privacy purist standpoint, I guess. And then we also work with IDOS, which is a team that recently also raised their seed round, where they look to solve the interoperability of KYC. But that comes a bit later. Right now, it's going to be just based on AML monitoring from Chainalysis CoinFirm and the anonymity revoking feature.
Okay, so when you get into the chain, that's when you need to do KYC.
Not at first, but when you cross a certain threshold, then yeah. And from your guys' perspective, how do you differ from other bridging solutions, basically?
Yeah, so
trustlessness, I guess.
Exactly. If you look at a lot of bridging solutions out there, they might say they have like configurable security models. You can choose your own like contract to handle verification. It always turns out to be a 2 out of 3 multi-sig or an Oracle somewhere deep down the stack. I think probably everyone saw the big fight between Hart and Primordial on Twitter, shitting on each other's code, on how you could technically for both layer 0 and across do a complete takeover as the team and mint and burn all the assets in that system. So we wanted to have a system where that wasn't the case. And then you're going to end up with some model where you do light client-based bridging, which is the model where you take proofs of the validators of the individual chains and basically make them underwrite the bridge transfers. We first wanted to do this on Ethereum, and that's when you encounter that this becomes too expensive to do for regular IBC. You're just going to waste hundreds of thousands of dollars a week, potentially, on just light client verification. And that's where we apply the ZK portion, because there you get about a 90% decrease in gas costs by doing so. And then the system starts to become actually competitive. So what we see with Union right now is if there's about, let's say, 5 transfers enqueued to go into Ethereum, the average gas cost per transfer on the destination side is only 60K in total. Okay. So that's about half the price of XLR at the moment. So myself very happy with that. Like the model works really nicely if you go the ZK route, and it has a few other really nice properties. Because with these like configurable verification backends that other teams use, you need to bootstrap a new oracle or create a new multi-sig relayer set. With our kind of ZK model, that's not the case. You deploy a new contract yourself to support a new chain, and you can start bridging yourself automatically. So you don't need to actually get permission from the Union team to join the Union interoperability network. That portion itself is permissionless. You could even build out a complete tech stack yourself, and without doing a governance proposal or talking with us, you could actually get supported and open IBC channels.
So, okay, so like with regards to this openness thing, would it be fair to compare this, let's say, philosophy of openness to what Hyperlane was doing to a degree?
Yeah, to a degree. So indeed, like the same permissionless nature. I think where we differ a lot is Hyperlane is very open in the fact that it's an open source tech stack that you can leverage, but you kind of leverage it to build your own, at least with Hyperlane, if you want like multi-sig bridge yourself. You're still running some infrastructure yourself. So there wasn't necessarily in the early versions a network effect of security, right? And so one Hyperlane route might have a lower security level than another Hyperlane route. That's not the case with Union. You have one big global security level that every connection inherits.
Pretty cool. That's cool. Yeah, we should definitely talk.
Yeah, sounds good. And so regarding the ZK space itself, like what excites you the most at the moment?
End user applications. So what I do most of the time is basically figure out how we can use this for this year and next year. Our focus is going to be primarily retail applications. So essentially, if you look at modern financial products or crypto products, like vast majority of the revenue from Coinbase is coming from retail. Not volume, but just purely revenue. And banks are the same way. So Coinbase, as far as I know, is like 90+% based on retail revenue, and then banks 70+% based on our data from various European banks. And the goal is how do we essentially make on-chain privacy unnoticeable. So if we look at the current solutions that we're using, like whether that's iPhone, WhatsApp, whatever it is, as users, we have some degree of that privacy, whether that's like hardware-based or software-based, but we don't really notice that. There's just like a small end-to-end encrypted pop-up. And when we want to do the same with Web3, it's way more complex. The UX is difficult, it takes a long time, and it's just inconvenient. We're not essentially saying that privacy is the argument that's gonna convince the masses to join, but it's going to be one of the crucial elements to help us get there, as long as we make it essentially very, very, very seamless. And to make it seamless, you probably want to have it on the client side and not necessarily trust validators or third parties, like in the case of TE, which is generally by design also less secure. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. And then the question is, what can you do with it while being still careful around this entire compliance debate, which has been happening for a while now.
Yeah, I kind of assume we probably both agree on TEs being kind of a cop-out. At least that's my belief. People often will see me tweet about the fact that if you go for trusting your hardware manufacturer, you're basically just trusting the Intel private key. Which can be fine for tiny applications, but not if you actually want to secure a bridge, for example, or an L1 and ensure that your users have actual privacy.
Yeah, and then with ZK, all you have to do is essentially, well, you gotta trust the people that deployed the code, but in the end, then for keeping secrets, you are trusting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, for me personally, what I've seen, what excites me a lot that I've seen over the last year is the massive computational increase we've achieved with ZK, and especially the more general purpose VMs. I think when we started out with Union, we wrote all of our circuits ourselves. We forked NARC to do our own precompiles, went through the kind of painful development journey. And in the meantime, like Risk Zero, for example, they really got their GPU acceleration on point. I think they're right now at 25 megahertz. And for those that want to know kind of about the numbers, when you want to do a computation on a regular CPU and kind of compute it in how many megahertz your CPU is capable of doing, or gigahertz, with ZK you see like a 1000x decrease in performance normally. So with Risk Zero, we're right now at 25 megahertz, but I think 2 years ago there was about 1. So actually it's already like 25x. And I think with like GPU acceleration and dedicated hardware, what are some CPU manufacturers making right now, we might see it reach like 100 or even 200 in a year. And that just allows us at Union to do so much more potentially, right? Fold so much more of our product in the ZK stack. And then in turn results that we spend less gas on chain. So the end cost for the user just goes down. That's what I'm hoping for, that at some point we kind of reach the like sub 1 cent, sub 1 second bridge messages across the Cosmos without like needing to use Oracle's relayers intense, but just generating a ZKP and have that end-to-end stack just executed that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, all this, because we're, you know, since there's, I think high level you can categorize ZK into the server side stuff and the client side stuff. And in our case, with the client side, it's pretty much the same. So we want to optimize this for the devices that you use today. And it finally managed to do it. But then also with time, it's just going to be less and less noticeable, even that something like this, like a client-side ZK proof, is being generated on your device. And right now with new iPhones, we managed to go to this, the record was like 0.27 seconds. So that's quite cool. And then we're hoping with the new releases, it's gonna go down to sub 0.1 second, I hope.
Yeah, I think perhaps client-side CK versus server-side CK really mirrors the thought stream in AI as well right now, right? Will we do client-side AI or will it remain server-side AI? But at Union, we've partnered with like Sindri and Firma, for example, to support our ZK proving pipeline, so that relayers can leverage them. I'm not yet sure, like, if we're going to see maybe a 2 or 3 year dominant streak by these companies that provide server-side ZK at a really low cost with dedicated hardware, and then we'll see client-side take over, or if client-side is already far enough that we'll just see these new companies not actually corner the market.
No, I mean, that would be pretty cool. Like the end game, I think, would be to build something that is, I guess, more akin to, at least from our side, more akin to a fintech app, but absolutely self-custodial, where you have a simple, unified interface for all the, say, the most popular lending protocols and so on, and then you have easy off-ramps, on-ramps. So this, we also want the privacy part to be a core message of there's this new movement, let's call it, it's called OpenFi, where you try to push for the self-custodial alternatives to centralized finance, whether that's in crypto or in conventional finance, or TradFi. Yeah.
I know there's a few projects out there right now that indeed do like non-custodial on-ramping based, or at least like you can generate a ZKP of what I guess is either some certificate that banks generate when they use Swift or something like that to prove that you've deposited fiat in the right account, and then the smart contract allows you to mint stables. What I haven't seen yet happen is the other way around though. I feel like on-ramping, we can figure out how to do that permissionlessly, trustlessly, but then actually off-ramping, I feel the market is really behind. Is there a solution to that, or?
I don't think there is. I mean, no, I don't think there is yet. So, you know.
That's kind of good for crypto. That means people can get in, but they can't get out. Move everyone to Web3.
At least I don't know of one. No.
Yeah, kind of, because yeah, even with like ZK TLS and stuff, there's like no way to actually get a fully smart contract controlled bank account. It might be a cool project if everyone wants to build it out. A bank purely on chain that I can just control for my EVM contracts.
Yeah, I mean, what you can check out is Harbor. This is like, we just recently launched a very fast, I guess, on ramping, where you can go from a bank account to stable coins in a matter of 1-2 seconds. So it's quite fast. It's a UK-based company, Still on the testnet, so we'll see how this works in the near future. But yeah, I mean, in the end, it's all about the UX and being honest with users and having as little trust assumptions as possible. Which brings me to your sort of daily bread, because interoperability is tricky. And, you know, like 3 years ago, we wouldn't even think of building like this cross-chain privacy pool because it wouldn't be even possible due to the times and sort of complexity and costs associated with it. So where do you think that bridging is going? Is this going to be invisible ultimately, or?
Yeah, that's the objective I have with Union as well. Like, I don't, like, sure, we're still in the phase right now where people need to be aware that they're using a bridge. You even need to host an Explorer and a UI specifically. No. But that's not really the future that we want. The future that I want is that wallets can support thousands of chains, that when I go to an app, the wallet infrastructure, Explorer infrastructure figures out what my financial positions are. So when basically I want to start LPing USDC, the underlying network will basically handle that the least amount of hops are taken, the cheapest route is taken, and I'm not actually aware that one DEX might be on Berachain and another DEX might be on Arbiter, right? That should just be taken care of for me altogether. And that's, I think, what the modular thesis needs the most right now, because then we can compete with Solana, right? Once we're in this world where we do sub-second bridging without any extra security assumptions, then this like network of 1,000 chains will start to make sense.
Yeah. And then essentially, do you think we will end up with, again, wallets? Do you think it's going to go more into, like, let's say we fast forward 2 years from now. Are we still using wallets, or are we using apps where all of this is happening in the background and wallet is just a feature of a sort of app that is a bit more akin to what we see now in Revolut N26, Mondo?
Yeah, I think those will actually start doing really well. We're working specifically with a team that wants to build kind of a super app for the modular stack and just move really quickly into supporting new protocols. I think if you build out a really solid code base, perhaps leverage web container technology, passkeys, you could probably like integrate a new DeFi protocol every day almost. So indeed, like build a super app that in probably a year actually can support almost any DeFi application that we've going on right now, and then just have a very UX-focused experience, but also uniform, right? Instead of needing to hop to all the different UIs, because every single DeFi protocol wants to be unique with their own UI, right? Even though they export similar functions, just have one super app that does so. I'm hoping there's going to be better browser extensions as well. Like, I'm really hoping that browsers will at some point just accept that they're going to provide like all the signing capabilities, nonce management that is necessary, or maybe password managers, like OnePass, for example. I would love to get rid of all of my wallets and just use OnePass to store the secrets, and then have apps be able to access that.
That would be, yeah, that would be definitely pretty cool. Like what we because I'm gonna refer to what we do because, well, like I know it best, but I guess so. We've started with a side panel essentially instead of a browser. And when Uniswap deployed their side panel, it was like essentially a confirmation of the direction, because it's just more convenient. Like extensions just disappear whenever you do something. It's not the best UX choice. But then again, I'm a huge believer in mobile, so I would just switch everything to mobile and do everything from the app. Yeah.
This is, by the way, one of the cases where I actually think TEs or SGX could serve. Right now, why we need browser extensions is because a browser extension is isolated from the actual web page. We never want the actual web page to access my private key, because I'm not sure if the DeFi protocol I'm interacting with is not going to send the private key over an API to the devs. So you want to have a kind of sandboxed wallet implementation in between. And the only way to do that in browsers is with extensions at the moment to achieve that sandbox. But it was never intended really to do it. And that's why it's the horrible UX that we have right now, where it just disappears the moment you go to a new tab.
Yeah, but well, hopefully side panels are going to be accepted by users more broadly. So that is a fix to the problem of just being forced to use an extension.
Yeah, but to be honest, on our end, like, I love being nerds now by UX and what's possible with those technologies. I think right now with Union, we're still at the stage that we're really trying to figure out how do we get this to be even more optimized. Right now, the fastest bridge transfer we did end-to-end on testnet was Stride to Berachain, 22 seconds. Out of that, we spent 7 seconds generating the proof. each have like a 1 second block time, so add 2 seconds. So theoretically, it should have been 9 seconds.
Okay.
We ended up with 22. So those other 13 seconds are spent by RPC latency, the time delta between the block proposer and the network propagating the block. So I think actually for us, like we could get a 2x latency improvement by getting our data faster after the block is produced. So maybe validator sidecars, maybe some type of service which proactively push to us. And that's necessary if we want to achieve that sub-second block latency transfer for asset transfers, because the RPC latency is something that we can't solve by having a fast approver. That's because we need to deal with thousands of nodes gossiping with each other, maybe cooperating, maybe not. And I haven't seen that many solutions to this yet on our end. So that's something I'm also interested in, if anyone knows how to solve it or wants to work on this.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely talk with our team, whether they have some ideas around it. Did not hear of anyone working on it, at least in our circle.
I think Ethereum is a bit ahead of this right now with their foray into the pre-confirmation space. Right? Block building is much more well-defined there. There's better pipelines for early access to block data to do all of their MEV stuff. So I'm hoping that kind of comes to Cosmos and the Coinbase stack too. Not because I want to see more MEV and people get sandwiched, but just because I want to have access to the data pipeline.
Yeah. And then, like, if you look at the end of the year, because we're, there's no November is just starting, December is right around the corner. What do you guys want to pull off still in those 2 months as Union?
Yeah, so we're right now in our Trusted Setup ceremony. We're in the private portion, so we've handed out different access codes to our community, early contributors. Soon we're going to open that to the public. Right now the wait list is approximately 20,000 users. Right. We cannot do 20,000 users. The average contribution time right now, I think it's 15 minutes, but for some people 30. So maybe 2,000 will be able to participate. So we're going to let that run until that number approximately. And after that, hopefully mainnet. With that, we're ready to actually have our first version go live. Mainnet isn't the end for us. We have a lot
this year, still.
Okay, don't make me promise mainnet now, but yeah, no, we're really working towards that. And then we have very protocol changes on top as well. So we are really extending IBC to make it more gas efficient, have a lot of extra functionalities, embed storage proofs, for example, direct connections between chains. Right now in IBC, people use packet forward middleware to do multiple hops between chains, which isn't as efficient as it could be, breaks quite often. Okay. We have new models for that as well, where basically we do a recursive storage proof of another chain so that you have a full insight into the state tree. So probably for the next 2 years, we're going to be pushing a lot of new cool features. Maybe in another year, we'll do another ceremony just to have circuit upgrades out there, get that performance even better. And after that, build out the app ecosystem. So right now we're doing the Union Fellowship program, and we have, I think, 4 or 5 groups of builders here at Cosmoverse who have been building different protocols on top of us. I'm really excited to see that come alive as well.
That's awesome. Congrats on all the progress. And yeah, no promises, of course, for the mainnet launch this year, right?
Yeah.
Because it's launching this November.
Exactly. And for you guys, what's the big milestone?
Pretty much the same. So we do need to organize our ceremony. I remember my co-founder, who's our CTO as well, just calling that we need to organize a ceremony and it has to be a big event. And then he gave me an 8-week timeline to put it all together. So it's not that easy, but this is what we're aiming for, and also bringing privacy to mainnet. And there are 2 challenges there. And first is right now we did a lot. We are in the process of testing this on different devices, from the cheapest Android phones to the most powerful iPhones, but it's still not the scale that we expect after the mainnet launch. So this is, this is testnet. This is not actual usage. So we're gonna see how this works in practice. And then the interoperability launch that we are planning for Q1 of next year, essentially, because that's the speed of the client-side proof generation plus interoperability is what makes this really, really interesting. Right now, it's just the first one.
All right, very cool. Cool. I think that's time for us as well.
Yeah, it's ticking.
Exactly. Thank you so much.